G'day, Bomber fans, and I'm guessing g'day Hawthorn fans as well, because you've obviously seen the thumbnail. The 2025 trade period only ended a week ago today, but we are talking about 2026 already, because today we had news that the Bombers were preparing a big offer for Hawthorn youngster Josh Weddle, which I guess shows us how big the Bombers are preparing to be in next year's off-season. We're going to be talking about the three high-profile players that we've already been linked to for next year, and we're going to talk about where those stories are at and what it means for next season's off-season, really. So yeah, let's go. Very early trade update for next year. Let's start with the recent news. So Josh Weddle, this is a big one. It kind of a bit out of left field considering the status of Josh Weddle, and his place at the club and in the competition. It's very common for teams to meet with free agents long before they're officially out of contract and propose offers to those free agents that could be on the table for them during the trade period. But Josh Weddle isn't a free agent. He is a player that would require a trade next year. He is out of contract next year, but he would still require a trade. He's not old enough to qualify as a free agent. He turns 22 next year. So the big news here is that Essendon, according to Cal Toomey, have put forward a massive record-breaking deal for Josh Weddle if he was to leave Hawthorn next year. So the Bombers would be willing to put forward a 7-year contract worth around $10 million in its entirety. It would be one of the biggest deals in the competition. It would be the biggest deal that Essendon have ever put forward. I do want to start by saying, because Hawthorn fans are not happy at the moment with the Bombers. Most of you guys are fine. It's not a club-specific thing, but, lots of comments. I know that there will probably be some Hawthorn fans in the comments saying, why would Josh Weddle want to leave the Hawks to go to Essendon? And I agree, for most reasons, Hawthorn is the better destination club of the two. It kind of goes without saying at the moment. But Essendon in 2026 will be the most cashed up club in the competition, and we're seeing that strategy play out very early. We're going to be splashing the cash. We've got Shield off the list, Draper off the list, Mackay's earning less thanks to that front-ended deal. We have a deal mostly consisting of players under 25 years old on less money. There's a large gaping hole in our salary cap, and we're going to be attacking young players that we think could be on more money at Essendon, and plenty of them will say no and stay with their club, and it wouldn't surprise me if Josh Weddle does that. It's hard to convince players to leave the clubs that they're happy at, and Josh Weddle is very happy at Hawthorn, especially, by the way, given how hard it is to trade for players nowadays. Look at Harley Reid, same situation as Weddle. He was having clubs come hard for him in his last contracted year. He had Hawthorn offer a deal of almost $20 million, and he said no. So just because we're offering Weddle big money, it doesn't mean he will, A, want to join the club, but also B, be able to join the club, because a trade could be too hard to agree upon. Remember how hard it was to agree for a trade for Zach Merritt. The negotiations won't be easy next year with Hawthorn and Essendon if this was to go any further. But yeah, you can't say for sure, disregarding with that he wouldn't want to join Essendon in 2026. Essendon will have more money to offer. We'll probably have more of a starring role for Weddle, who's kind of been asked to play a bunch of different roles at the Hawks. I think we all see his upside, but also see the fact that he quite hasn't hit that peak yet or gotten close to it. So if I'm Josh Weddle, I'm seeing this as an opportunity to choose between playing at a premiership club or contending club in Hawthorn, or being the star and the face of a rebuilding club on better money at Essendon. And to be honest, me personally, I'd be picking the flag. I'd be picking Hawthorn. That's what I'd do. But everyone's different. Weddle might say no pretty quickly to Essendon, or maybe he'll be tempted and say yes. Either way, it doesn't hurt to ask. That's what I like about this. And if we don't get him, we drive up his price for the Hawks to pay a bit more out of their salary cap. So, yeah, I like this a lot. I don't think it happens. I think it would be so incredibly difficult to get a trade done for Josh Weddle, especially given what just happened with Zach Merritt. There is also, some will say, the possibility of walking a player to the draft. I would think it's more likely that Weddle would rather stay with Hawthorn than walk to the draft with that uncertainty. But yeah, I like the club being really aggressive in this space early. And if there's one Hawthorn player that I could have on our list, it would probably be Josh Weddle. So I like the fact that we're at least asking the question. The other one that the Bombers are keen on, and probably the rest of the comp too, realistically, is Zac Bailey. So he's one of the biggest names out of contract for next season. He was named All-Australian for the first time this year after winning his second flag. He is a gem of a player. Clubs are keen, and no one more keen right now than Essendon. So before Weddle, we were actually considering offering the largest contract in the club's history to Zac Bailey. We're still considering that contract. It's just, being bunked a bit by Hawthorn, the offer for Hawthorn's Josh Weddle. It was again Cal Toomey who broke this news. He said that the club were preparing a mega offer worth $1.3 million a year for potentially 6 seasons. And although some were keen for him to be a trade target this year, it was always going to be free agency because, of course, next year he is a restricted free agent, meaning unlike with Weddle, where we would have to trade for him him. With Zac Bailey, if we offer a large enough sum of money that Brisbane can't match, he can walk to us without a pick needing to be swapped over. That is why free agents are better value than contracted players, especially in today's landscape where high-profile players are worth more than they've ever been worth. You know, Merritt, Petrarca, and Curnow were all worth 3 or more first-round picks. It is just better value for clubs to overspend from a monetary viewpoint rather than losing picks, and that is why the Bombers will be one of a few clubs to go really, really hard for Zac Bailey. As I said before, we've got one of, if not the biggest salary cap spaces to fill, meaning we can offer more money to these star players than other clubs can. Of course, that is only relevant if Zac Bailey wants to move and if money is a determining factor in that, but it gives us a huge leg up if that is the case. You know, Bailey is Victorian, he's yet to sign a contract extension. I think we give it a couple of months, but if we're entering the 2026 season and Bailey is yet to agree on a contract extension from Brisbane, then we're really looking at a situation where the Bombers are a club in the mix, because Bailey typically tends to sign his contracts and negotiate his deals at the end of a season, around this time of the year usually, and that is yet to happen for his free agency year, even though the Lions have begun to work on a new deal for him. The good news is we're going to have a lot of money to work with for this deal, but there is a long time to go before we start thinking about that. There's every chance that Bailey sticks around at Brisbane, and why wouldn't you want to stay there? He's a chance to win a third premiership in a row next year. The big one for 2026, for the entire competition really, is Zak Butters. So I think everyone kind of knows that Zac Bailey is a solid chance to stay with Brisbane and end his career with Brisbane. But Zak Butters, another free agent for 2026, there are some who already think he's gone back to Victoria. There were reports that he brought up a potential trade at this year's exit meeting. Then we saw him pictured training with players from Victorian clubs, golfing with Essendon players, and that sort of stuff I never really buy. Like, these guys are often mates from childhood, from different teams. It happens all the time. But the fact is, Butters is a free agent, he's Victorian, and there is a strong suggestion that in 2026 he could look to move back home to Victoria. I'm not saying he will, but of the free agents for next year, Butters looks the most available for clubs. Now, with that comes Port Adelaide and the belief that they would match any contract for Butters to force a trade for the superstar to get more for him, complicating things a little bit. But again, Essendon have more money than Port. If any club was to get around the need for a trade, it would probably be the Bombers. You don't want to be bringing in this type of player in a trade. It's rarely worth ruining multiple drafts for one player. The appeal with Butters is not just his quality as a player, but his contract status and the fact that in an ideal world, you wouldn't need to trade for him if Port can't match the contract. And there is 100% a world where Port can't match the contract. You know, of course, they have the money to be, throwing around up to $2 million a year, but they don't want to be doing that. They'd have a limit, and the Bombers have, less scope or more scope with what they can offer. Now, with this, we're definitely not the most talked about club in this story. The Bulldogs are believed to be the favourites due to geographical links, that western side. And if we do end up bringing Hinkley across, to the club, that would be a huge bonus given his relationship with Butters. And of course, Essendon isn't miles away from Footscray, that it's on the right side. And, if you can convince him to just move just a tiny bit. Obviously, there's a long way to go on this one, though, and every club's going to be interested. Butters will 100% be a player that we have a go at. There is no reason not to. We've got the money. We've got the need for a player of his ability. I honestly think of the three I've just talked about, Butters is probably the one that the club should look to attack the hardest with what we've got at our disposal. He's the best of the lot, and he's still a really good age. Yeah, I guess looking at this all, it is hard not to be excited about our approach for next year. We're linked to three really high-profile players out of contract, and it's not even November. Think about how many players we're going to be linked to even by the start of 2026. It's exciting. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a list dive soon to talk about our future strategy, but the way that we're attacking the draft lately with high picks, there is soon going to be a point when we then look to find ready-made options to improve our list quicker from other clubs. And next year is a big one because Tasmania enter the competition soon. We're going to be facing an uphill battle in winning over players for trades when they're in the competition, given the money that they're going to have. That season is, of course, also when we have the big draft boost with Kobe Buick and the other NGAs. So 2026 genuinely does make a lot of sense to be a year where we splash the cash, throw money at big name free agents. Ben King as well, he's another one. He's one that we've been linked to. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are again involved in a trade period heavily after a few years of focusing solely on the draft. I'd be watching out for 2026. The trade period is one that the Bombers could look to benefit from. And of course, that all does hinge on how we perform during the regular season. Because if we're playing poor footy, stuck down the bottom of the ladder, it's going to be a lot harder to convince out-of-contract players to move clubs. Time will tell, but the good news is we are active early. If there was a prize for the team most active and hungry or ready for next year's off-season, the Bombers would be on the podium, or maybe even first place. But of course, there isn't a prize for that, and who wants to win that anyway? Cheers for watching, guys. Plenty more to come. Lots of draft content coming your way. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let me know down below who you want out of these three. Who's the one of these three out of Weddle, Bailey, and Butters that you want at the club next year? And as always, go Bombers.